Good morning, and welcome to your morning cereal. Okay, good morning, and welcome to Wednesday. Hey, did you know that Wednesday got its name because it was derived from the Old English word Wadnesdog and the Middle English Wednesday, meaning Day of Woden, reflecting the religion practiced by the, you know what, it's hump day. Welcome to Wednesday. It's also Carpe Diem Day. That's about enjoying the moment without concern for the future. So it's probably a good thing it's just Carpe Diem Day and not Carpe Diem Week or Carpe Diem Month, because that could prove to be very problematic. Well, it's also Black Lives Matter Day and For Pete's Sake Day. And this intro is getting long. For Pete's sake, let's get into today's quotes. One fun, nostalgic quote, and then a second quote to tease our book review later in the episode. Hopefully, one of these quotes will speak to you and jumpstart your day in a positive direction. The first quote is from singer Josh Groban, who said, quote, "Don't give up. It's just the weight of the world," end quote. And I sense some serious sarcasm here. Now, my wife and I have actually seen Josh a few times in concert, and in addition to being a very talented person, he's also hilarious. So this is actually a song lyric that speaks to loved ones helping you out through those hard times and supporting you. It's a great song. Well, today's teaser quote from the book review is, quote, "If you want to make enemies, outshine your friends. But if you want to make friends, let your friends outshine you," end quote. And as usual, we'll unpack that here in just a few minutes during the book review segment. But first, let's jump into our usual dose of fun and historic facts from this day in history. And today's news, facts, and birthdays are for February 26th. And we're going to start way back in 1815, when on this day is when Napoleon escaped from the island of Elba, where he was sent when he was forced to abdicate as French emperor in the previous year. Well, Napoleon escaped from exile from the island, and gathering support on his way back to Paris, he eventually retook power on his return to Paris on March 20th, which ushered in the 100-day period. Then in 1919, the U.S. Congress established the Grand Canyon National Park in northwestern Arizona. This is a national park I still haven't been to. I gotta make it there. Then in 1928, American singer and pianist Fats Domino. He's a rhythm and blues standout who became one of the first rock and roll stars. He was born. Now, I remember Fats Domino basically for his song Blueberry Hill, because it was on a tape cassette that we listened to on our family road trips. Then in 1929, Grand Teton National Park was established in Wyoming. And in 1950, it was expanded to include most of Jackson Hole National Monument. And if you're watching this on YouTube, that's an incredible picture right there. All right, Johnny Cash, he was born on this date in 1932. Then in 1935, radar, which is the radio detection and ranging, it was first demonstrated in England. Then we're going to skip all the way up to 1974. That's when Nike received the patent for waffle-soled shoes. You know, that's the sole of the Nike shoes that we all know so well. Well, that was actually invented on a waffle iron. That's crazy. Then in 1991, the world's first web browser was presented to the public. It was called the World Wide Web, and then they later renamed it Nexus. It was developed by Tim Berners-Lee, who was a British computer scientist, best known as the inventor of the World Wide Web, /HTML, /HTTP. Then in 1993, you might remember seeing this on TV as well, the World Trade Center in New York was bombed in an act of terrorism. Then finally, in 2004, a worker in a supermarket in Aspen, Colorado, alerted the police after seeing a man shopping with his face covered by a mask. Well, when police arrived on the scene, they identified the man as none other than Michael Jackson, who was in town on holiday with his children. And it goes back to the old saying, if you see Michael Jackson, say something. All right, well, happy birthday if today is your birthday. You share a birthday with singer Josh Groban. He's 44 today. And Neil Schon, the lead guitarist for the band Journey. He turned 71 today. Well, the number one movie on this date back in 1997 was Absolute Power. produced, directed, and starring Clint Eastwood, and he was a master jewel thief. Enough said. I'm sold on it. And the number one song on this date back in 1983 was the love ballad Baby Come to Me by Patty Austin and James Ingram. And if you're a sucker for 80s love songs like me, then you probably have this song in your collection when you bought the complete set of Reflections of Love CDs, right? You remember those in the info commercials? If you know, you know. Okay, let's move on to some personal growth in the book review segment of Morning Cereal. This is where we take a few moments to reflect on lessons learned from the current book we're reading. And currently, we're reading through Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a timeless book that is consistently on all the must-read lists, and it's packed with rock-solid advice and actions for us all to use and build healthy foundational concepts to live by. Well, yesterday we finished up Chapter 5, which was The Secret of Socrates. And that's where Carnegie introduced the yes-yes technique. And this technique uses the Socratic method, which emphasizes finding things that you can agree upon to get the other person saying yes, and aiming for these yeses from the other person while we try to avoid having them say no. And Carnegie says, quote, "In talking with people, don't begin by discussing the things on which you differ. Begin by emphasizing and keep on emphasizing the things on which you agree," end quote. An old Chinese proverb that states, quote, "He who treads softly goes far." And Chapter 5 was entitled The Secret of Socrates, and Carnegie's principle number 5 is get the other person saying yes, yes, immediately. Well, today we're going to begin and finish Chapter 6 of Part 3. And Chapter 6 is entitled A Safety Valve to Handle Complaints. And once again, Carnegie dives right in, saying, quote, "Most people trying to win others to their way of thinking do too much talking themselves. Let the other person talk themselves out," end quote. The other person may know a lot about the subject, or they may just have a lot on their mind. And Carnegie suggests that we let them get it all out, even asking questions to learn more and to encourage them to, quote, "express their ideas fully," end quote. As we learned previously, be careful not to interrupt or correct because they likely aren't listening anyways and just thinking about what else they have to say. So listen, be patient, be sincere, and be encouraging. Carnegie relates a story to us about a salesman. He's meeting with an automobile manufacturing company, and they're in the final stages of hearing bids for a year's worth of upholstery. And the top 3 upholstery manufacturers were invited to the company to present their final plea to land the huge contract. And as the story goes, this particular salesman showed up that morning with a severe case of laryngitis. He couldn't talk at all. And when it was his turn to present, he wrote this fact on a piece of paper saying, "I can't talk, I literally can't speak." And instead of presenting the deal himself, the president of the car company said he would present it for him to the other executives. Lo and behold, the salesman who couldn't speak won the contract, and he said after the meeting that he probably would have lost the contract had he not caught laryngitis, saying, quote, "He had the wrong idea about the whole proposition. I discovered, quite by accident, how richly it sometimes pays to let the other person do the talking," end quote. And this also works in the home. Carnegie recounts a story about a mother who was at wit's end and often found herself yelling or arguing with her teenage daughter. I can't say that's ever the case here in my house, but we'll go with it this time. Well, one day the mother was just too exhausted to have yet another parenting blowout with her daughter and simply asked the question, "Why?" And the daughter answered, "Do you really want to know why?" And as it turns out, the daughter had a lot to say about her life and her feelings. But usually she couldn't get to that because her mom would interrupt her and was always telling her to do this or to do that. And as it turned out, the daughter needed a confidant to express her thoughts and her feelings and ideas about growing up. And from that time on, the mom allowed her daughter to do most of the talking, and it made them closer, and it ultimately improved the daughter's behavior. Well, Carnegie gives a few other examples where being prepared for the meetings and letting the other person do the majority of the talking was beneficial in multiple different scenarios. And I can tell you from my personal experience, having been a manager, having been a business owner and a client manager for over 25 years now, I can tell you that simply listening to people when they are mad or when they're upset or complaining, letting them have their say and being sympathetic to it, well, that's 90% of the battle won. People want to be heard. It makes them feel what's important to them is being recognized. And Carnegie closes out this chapter with a quote from a French philosopher, essentially who said, and I'm paraphrasing here, quote, "If you want to make enemies, outshine your friends. But if you want to make friends, let your friends outshine you," end quote. Team, we know Carnegie talks over and over again about making the other person feel important, and this is no different. If we are constantly telling others how great we are, nobody wants to hear that. They want to talk about themselves. And in the final story of the chapter, a lady who didn't win any friends at work because she talked too much about her accomplishments figured out over time that that wasn't working and that she should listen more to her associates. And now she asks them, quote, to share their joys with me, and I only mention my achievements when they ask, end quote. Okay, we covered a full chapter today, chapter 6, which was entitled A Safety Valve to Handle Complaints. And Carnegie's principle number 6 is, let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Nicely done. We're actually making it pretty far through the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So tomorrow we start chapter 7 of part 3, and that chapter is entitled How to Get Cooperation, for Pete's sake. So come back for that tomorrow. We are nearly halfway through this work week. Get out there and meet those obstacles head on. And even if it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, just keep swimming and you'll get there. Thanks for joining. We'll see you back here tomorrow and have a fantastic day. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Morning Serial podcast on the One Life Live It channel. You can find more episodes and videos by visiting our YouTube channel and the website at Sean Inglis and at SeanInglis.com, where you can also follow our other podcasts, the Mr. and Mrs. Inglis podcast and the Life Happens podcast. In these other podcasts, we'll dive deeper into everyday issues, self-improvement and well-being, business and finance, and we welcome special guests too. So join us. It'll be a good time, I promise. Thanks again for listening. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you tomorrow.